farm, and that occurs very often in those center. Oh my goodness!
What a read!
What a read! Throwing the energy ball into the Azumarill switch and Arrow.
He is predicting the switch out. This is so rare to see. What a play from Arrow.
Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I am coming at you with another video from the Pro Tip series. It's been a while since I made one of these, but I have a lot in mind that I want to continue making, and something I always think is a really great way to describe Pokemon Go PvP is one of my patrons said, my goal with this series is always to break down the more complex aspects of the game so that you can understand what some of these top players are doing and you can get there yourself. Today's pro tip will be on anticipating catches. This is definitely a strategy that a lot of top players use, and it's not the easiest to execute, but if you execute it well, it can end up winning you games that you probably wouldn't win otherwise. So my primary example of this, I'm going to show a clip from a previous tournament that Arrow performed in, and he pulls this exact strategy off. Before we get into the battles, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to all my patrons who've been supporting my content creation. If you'd like private one-on-one coaching, scrims against me, some of my league guides and strategies ahead of time, or even tune into my live stream battles, feel free to sign up through the Patreon link down below.
This is a decisive game number 3.
Here it is.
Shadow Abomasnow hits the field.
We're finally seeing it. This is not the double steal that we're seeing from Dijon, but actually brings in the steal right away. The last thing that it wants to see is that Abomasnow. Arrow has the answer. We talked about that premier answer, not the good answer, the premier answer to the Registeal. Speedy, it's the Shadow Kanto Ninetales.
Shadow Kanto Ninetales turning up the heat here. A Zap Cannon coming through. We've seen this again, trial and error experience. We know that Zap Cannon is not enough to KO, and the lock-ons are not enough either. Now the attack drop does come into play here. We're going to see a Weather Ball from that Shadow Kanto Ninetales.
Registeal is an incredibly impressive Pokemon here. We're actually seeing a 0 bubble from Arrow. I don't know if this is enough to knock out. It's not. And are we going to get to another Focus Blast? Actually does. This is a bit of a miscue. Let's it go. Let's the move go. There is no reality where I was ever expecting Registeal to take that matchup. What this translates to is a Powder Snow down from this Abomasnow. There's a lot of destinations for this energy to still go. I don't know if Arrow knows what's in the back, but there's a lot of targets for this Abomasnow, but now there's so much more pressure on it, Speedy.
Oh, what's so funny, right? Arrow kind of nodding his head there. After the game, he probably will say, oh yeah, that's what I meant to do, right?
Of course.
He comes in here with the Noctowl. We're going to see all that sort of energy come into play. The first Weather Ball will get Protect Shielded up by Dijon the Jin. Maybe Arrow made this call. Maybe he knew the Noctowl was in the back, and this Abomasnow is such a core breaker for Noctowl and Azumarill.
Some of my favorite farm downs are going to be with resisted fast moves because it translates to even more energy, and this is a shadow Pokemon. These charge moves are devastating. A lot of fast move pressure versus this Noctowl, but these charge moves, Weather Ball, you have to respect. We're seeing Dijon use these Protect Shields, but at the same time, this Noctowl is at a move. You need to shield up these Sky Attacks if you want to hang on to this Abomasnow.
Yeah, anytime you're taking minimal or resisted damage, it's a great time to over-farm, and that occurs very often in those center. Oh my goodness!
What a read!
What a read! Throwing the energy ball into the Azumarill switch and Arrow.
He is predicting the switch out. This is so rare to see. What a play from Arrow. You can see his face light up, throwing the energy ball into the Noctowl, but it lands on the Azumarill. What a prediction that we just saw, Speedy.
Abomasnow used energy ball, but Arrow used future sight, predicting that switch in, and gets a key play there. You can see these trainers, all they can do is smile because that was masterful.
What a play, and we still have Arrow with the Protect Shield at this point, still has the Abomasnow ready to go. Keep in mind there's still some energy on this Noctowl, but what a play, what a series that we've seen here, Speedy.
That was a gruesome charge room priority event as well. So much energy on this Frostlass. I'm telling you, Arrow was already 3 steps ahead. He wants to be a mile ahead.
All right, well, Speedy, we've seen all the ice coming out from Arrow, but it's on full display here. So many Weather Balls, so many Avalanches, able to punch his ticket to the next round. Arrow in our final game will take the 2-1 victory. They hug it out. What a series we just had.
Breaking down what Arrow does, obviously he had a pretty sizable advantage coming into that Noctowl versus Abomasnow matchup. And if you notice, he also has a shield advantage into that Noctowl. Now, Dijon the Jin, also a really strong player in his own right, is smart enough to recognize that Arrow knows that his Abomasnow is going to win charge attack priority, and he's not going to win it. He's already down a shield, so he doesn't want to take this massive super effective Weather Ball damage from the Shadow Abomasnow, and he hasn't even seen the third Pokemon at this point in time. So he knows that Arrow is good enough to throw on charge attack priority, which is why he ends up trying to catch even after the fact that Arrow has already reached that weather ball. He knew exactly what Arrow was trying to do. And Arrow, this is where the anticipation comes in, is that he recognizes the skill of his opponent, Dijon, and ends up throwing the energy ball when he should have thrown weather ball on charge attack priority, anticipating Dijon's anticipation of the swap, right? So there's two layers to this, right? You have to, one, recognize when your opponent will attempt to catch, and it's not just when he got the energy, right? Because obviously if he just went for that, he would have just easily thrown the energy ball anyway. But instead, Arrow knows that Dijon knows Arrow was going to throw on the weather ball. And so instead, Arrow outplays him a bit and ends up throwing a super effective weather ball, or energy ball I should say. And at that point, there's just nothing Dijon really can do to climb back into the game. Had he caught a weather ball, things could have been a lot more interesting for him. I think still would have been an uphill battle, but he would have left with a sky attack on the knockdown, and the Zuma would catch a resistant move. And at that point in time too, it's not within energy ball KO range, so it could throw Ice Beam at the Obama Snow, or it could throw, neutral play rough at the Frostless. Frostless still has to dump a lot of energy. So put Arrow in a huge sizable advantage to win him that match, and I believe in that specific match too, it netted Arrow at least a top 3 finish in a tournament. He ended up getting 2nd place. So if you don't know Arrow, he's a really talented player. He's gotten 2nd place at 3 separate tournaments already in his competitive career. He's won many grassroots tournaments, and I believe he's hit legend or the highest ranked in Go Bad League every single season that PvP has been out. That being said, he's also a friend of mine, and we sometimes do scrims, so I'm gonna show you all another example of this when I'm playing against Arrow myself and we implement some of these same strategies. In this specific battle, me and Arrow were doing show 6 practice, so he already knows what I could potentially have in the back line. But even if this was Go Battle League, it doesn't really matter too much because the concepts are still very similar. So I have 2 water type Pokemon in the back, so I'm going to swap over to my Feraligatr. I believe I knew his Cloud type wasn't Sludge Bomb at least, so it makes it a little bit easier for my particular matchup against it with the Zumro. I'm going to throw a Hydro Cannon. He knows he can tank it. He knows I pretty much have to shield anything here because it's going to do a sizable amount of damage to my Feraligatr. Goes for the Stone Edge, like I said, not Sludge Bomb, and he comes in with the Typhlosion. Now, this situation is kind of weird because I'm up energy, however, he's up shields, and Typhlosion just needs to land 1 Thunder Punch to take me out here. So it's actually not the best situation for me because he also wins Charge Attack priority against my Feraligatr. That being said, I'm down shields, and I'm going to go for another Hydro Cannon, and he's going to shield right here. Now here's where it gets interesting. He knows that Thunder Punch is enough to KO me. He also knows that I had a Claw in the lead. So instead of throwing that Thunder Punch, and this is the Arrow we're talking about, right? Knowing how to anticipate catches, he throws a Blast Burn, anticipating that I'm going to catch on my Clodsire. Because if I catch on the Clodsire, he's in a lot of trouble, right? Double resisted Thunder Punch, non-stab. It's not going to do that much Clodsire, even from Shadow Typhlosion. I kind of anticipated that, so I end up catching it actually on my Azumarill. And I recognize also how strong my Feraligatr is, so keeping it healthy in the back could be pretty strong. And then now he comes in with a Cresselia. Obviously, it's going to be a strong counter to my Azumarill, especially with this chip damage from the Blast Burn. And that being said, again, I'm anticipating his own swaps here, so I throw on a proper timing where he would expect me to throw the move, right? I didn't throw right when I had the Ice Beam, I threw right one over because it's optimal timing. And I'm pulling a little trick out of his book, anticipating his catch there, and we end up throwing the Ice Beam instead of the resisted Play Rough. I don't know, Play Rough plus some bubble damage might have been enough at this point too. I'm pretty far ahead at this point because I have a full health Clodsire. I still have a Feraligatr in the back with a little bit of energy, so at this point in time, the game is pretty much over for Arrow. And so 2 instances of anticipating catches in one game, right? One is Arrow anticipating the catch on my Clodsire, but I had to kind of anticipate his anticipation and actually saw to my Azumarill to catch a resistant move. And then, of course, I anticipate his own catch right then and there. So that's pretty much the breakdown of what I did against him. Obviously, not all my games are played that well, and it was well played by Arrow as well, too. He just didn't really have a great answer to that Feraligatr safe swap. But just to show you an example of how this can play out in a style that even in GBL, you can do something like that, right? Because he didn't throw the Blast Burn knowing I had a Azumarill in the back. He threw the Blast Burn knowing I had a Clodsire in the lead, and knowing that no matter what, if I don't shield and I let it go, he still takes down Feraligatr. And he probably doesn't get to another move anyway on the Typhlosion, so for him, he's just going to throw a move to avoid me catching a resistant move. And that's kind of what you need to do when you face good players. And so that's an important factor here, is that yes, these strategies are important, especially as you climb higher and higher in the ranks in Go Battle League or in tournament play, stuff like that. But you also have to recognize your opponent's skill level too, right? If you're playing someone that doesn't really know their counts, it's like the first day of Go Battle League in the first season, and they're running like maybe an Absol and I was gonna say Starmie, but Starmie is actually not terrible these days. You know, an Absol, a Flareon, stuff like that, then they're probably not going to go for these catch plays, right on timing, or know when to go for it. But if you recognize the opponent, your skill, the caliber of your opponents, and the skill they have, and knowing when they may anticipate going for the catch, if you can anticipate their catches, then you can end up throwing the correct move and really catch them off guard and win yourself some games. That's today's clip on pro tips. You know, these kind of plays are not random. They're very intentional on why players throw at certain time, and sometimes it's just one player's playing 3D chess and the other player's playing 4D chess and just one step ahead. Anyway, I'll post more pro tips video over the course of these coming months. I have a lot more in the works, so stay tuned. And of course, I have a whole other playlist full of pro tips videos, so feel free to browse through those if you haven't seen any, or feel free to share with anyone that's newer to the game that wants to really dive into some of the more advanced mechanics and strategies of the game to see why they might not be hitting legend or the rank they're looking for. Thanks all for tuning in. Shout out to anyone that's a big fan. Shout out to my biggest fan, Glenda, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.